Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Belsky, your host of the Sunset Session. This is season 4. Sunset Session's brought to you by FlowerHire. We have an amazing guest today. We have Rama from Hall of Flowers and Green Street Agency. Rama, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, bud.
So, Rama, like you kind of behind the scenes, low key, filling in the gaps from what you see this industry needs over the course of the last 5-10 years, and we'll talk through that more. But you have a pretty amazing story as an entrepreneur, at a young age.
Thanks, bud.
Right? I mean, started doing off the grid punk shows and events in the woods of Massachusetts for skateboarding. Getting youth together and launched a record label and ended up selling that 10 years later. You've always been an entrepreneur, right? So tell me about the first.
I wanted a Nintendo, and we couldn't afford it, so you had to go make money.
You go hustle.
Yeah. And that's it. My mom was like a single mom growing up, and she worked her ass off, and just that was it. Section 8 housing kind of thing, right? So it was like anything we wanted, we just had to work. So I started working at a restaurant when I was a kid, a seafood restaurant, like cleaning on the weekends, and then worked there through high school.
Chowder, lobster.
Literally, that's what it was. It was called the bar lunch, and it was like fried clam window, basically. Oh, it was awful. And I worked there for a long time and did a good job and could buy shit, and then grew up skateboarding like you mentioned too. So with that, it's a lot of like building DIY obstacles and things like that, And then I did essentially in high school, started doing punk shows with my friend, and that led to starting a record label. And I did that for like 12 years, the label, and worked with a bunch of really cool young artists, like from basements up until they were really famous. And music was kind of getting iTunes and all that kind of downloading was happening. So I sold my company and I started a fashion trade show. Did that for a couple years, which is wild.
And the connectivity to the fashion trade show was because in the artist world, they make money from merch, right? And there was something in your exposure to the merch world in supporting punk artists that
at the end of the record label, I was consulting, kind of, I guess you'd call it, for some of the trade shows. So my partner in Hall of Flowers, Aaron Levant, had a trade show called Agenda, and I booked the DJs for Agenda. And in exchange for that, he gave me some booth space at the trade show. And I brought the band's punk merch to the trade show just like out of with a day or two notice. I had no idea. I didn't have wholesale or line sheets or order forms. I didn't know what any of the seasons, I didn't know what any of this was. I just like I had merch at a punk show, I just set up a merch booth at the trade show. I thought it was like a flea market more than I didn't understand what it was. And then buyers of chain stores came around and they ordered clothes for me. And it changed my whole perspective on stuff, because I was making this merch myself already, and that's why we started Hall of Flowers. Basically, is because of the trade show. It's been in my brain for years. But I did the trade show, and then started an ad agency. Did the ad agency from the trade show was like 2007, 8, 9, I guess, and then the ad agencies since then. So whatever that is, 15 years or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, a long time. And I had an art gallery and for a lot of the agency stuff. I love art, so I had a little, if I had an agency, like how you guys have 2 floors here, I would have an agency on one floor and a gallery space on a different floor. So I did that for a few years as well. And then I mentioned to you about, we were doing the agency and we were doing Beats by Dre, Disney, DreamWorks, and
marquee CPG and entertainment brands.
Yeah, some of the biggest. And we worked with direct with client only. We didn't work with agencies, which is really kind of rare. So we were working with those big clients, and I met Chris Folkerts, our friend Chris, and he was like, let's put G-Pen.
Founder of G-Pen.
Yeah, he's like, let's put G-Pen through this system that was already doing Beats and Disney and all these things, and let's see what happens if we treat and they were already doing well, but a cannabis brand that's kind of underground, what happens if you put that kind of pixie dust of the mainstream stuff on it, So we did that for a few years, and that's really where Green Street came from is, essentially my partner now, Josh Shelton, he was doing all the compliance work for GPen at the time. So he came back to us and said, hey, the ad agency and my law firm should merge together to create like a compliant ad agency for cannabis. And this is, 10 years ago. And
ahead of the curve. But
yeah, way early. But the same, why I did it, and like the whole point of the punk stuff is the same exact feeling I got from Chris and the other cannabis op Tascam, Highly Educated, Wonder Bread, Jared, West Coast Cure, like the same exact feeling I got from those people is the feeling I got from like the singer of Jimmy Eat World or At the Drive-In or The Hives or All American Rejects, these bands I worked with early on. So I was like, holy shit, like, just like skateboarding was illegal, then made it to the Olympics, just like punk was like tiny basements, now mainstream, whatever. Cannabis is going to go that way, for sure. It was obvious even 10 years ago, it was pretty obvious it was going that way. And, it was the same kind of inspiration,
Well, the people you mentioned too, I mean, like you mentioned people that form some parts of the foundation of authentic cannabis culture on the West Coast, right? And so when you're thinking about supporting, punk music, skateboarding, like these are cultural phenomenons.
100%.
That are
100%.
driven by the people.
Yeah, 100%.
And so
Yep.
finding those entrepreneurs and founders that were also at the cross section of culture and consumerism, music and cannabis, go hand in hand. Music, cannabis, and fashion go hand in hand. And your experience and what you'd seen when you came across, people like Chris Folkerts, there's a familiarity to that. Like
100%.
I'm sure cannabis was always part of the world in the punk rock days, right?
100%.
But it was everything that you had done career-wise led to that.
I want to tell my Chris Folker story real quick because it's pretty hilarious. So when I met him officially, we were at Agenda in Las Vegas, the trade show I was saying with my partner Aaron started, and we're standing outside of a booth for a skateboard brand called Huff. Keith Huff-Nagel passed away, but we were both there to meet Keith, Chris and I, and we're both standing outside of the booth looking in, and we're kind of looking at each other like the way, like how far are you apart? Like we're both doing this. And he's like tall like you are, and he looks cool, and like he's like, "What's up, man? Like, what's up?" And we like said, we kind of like, "You're familiar? Like, how do I know you? Like, what's your name? Oh, Chris, Rama, Chris. Okay, cool. How do I know you? I don't know." He's like, "You like weed?" I'm like, "Love weed." He pulls out his little pen. I'm like, "What's that?" He goes, "This is like a G pen. There's weed in this, hash oil." And I was like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "I have like a joint I can smoke in a trade show now, like." And I hit the pen. Oh my God, super high. We exchanged phone numbers, and he called me 30 minutes later, and he goes, "Dude, I know where I know you from." I was like, "What's up?" He goes, "You live at this address." And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm your next door neighbor." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "We live in the same apartment building. This is a 4-unit building, maybe 8 units. He shares a wall with me for years."
Wow.
We never talked because it's LA.
Yeah, it's LA.
And we just like do head down. But he's like, "That's why I know you. I pass you in the hallway." Fucking crazy.
Wow.
So I invited him over to our events. We used to do an event called the Pancake Epidemic. This is where we started working with beats and stuff. My mentor, Darren Romanelli, he has an artist named Dr. Romanelli. Him and his wife are incredible artists, incredible people. Like my mentor, even though he's like my same age kind of thing, like really amazing. And he has this agency that's working with these big brands. And we signed Stumptown Coffee, and we're above IHOP at the time. And he goes, we took over an extra office on the floor, and he goes, "We're going to do a thing called the Pancake Epidemic, inspired by IHOP and Stumptown Coffee. It's going to be Friday mornings, 9 a.m. to 11, invite only, whatever." He's like famous, kinda, has a lot of famous friends. It's LA. So we start doing these Friday morning events, and it's like the most influential people on the planet legitimately are coming to these things. Talking about like Emrata to fucking the Wu-Tang Clan to everything in between, like crazy people, right? Every Spider-Man was there ever, So we're doing this morning. That's why I do the donuts and pizza thing, and Joya at the new space is this Friday morning LA kind of work thing, right? Because like you talked about earlier, you and I were talking like, this is work right now. Right. Like the fact that we get to call this work, so how can I not be excited and inspired? Like, this is like, I'm ecstatic that I could even call this a job, So we're doing this pancakey thing. Green Street, Chris starts coming to the pancake epidemic. This is before he was a client, just as a friend. And he comes for a few months. He's giving people product. We're meeting these people, these celebrities, whatever, kind of getting, And he's like, how come you never asked me to be part of the agency? And I was like, well, Beats is expensive. It's a big retainer, And we told him how much, and he said, let's do it, like on the spot. It was crazy. And then kind of the rest was history.
Did he have to pay in cash?
No, I think he had his real money back then.
Yeah, hardware.
Yeah, because they were doing online
open.
And stuff like that. I didn't deal with any of the money shit. That's like the other part. Like we talked about this. Like I used to think it's idea only and execution was whatever. And now obviously I was wrong. Like it's all about the execution. But I have, Danny that runs Hall of Flowers and my partners in Green Street and partners in the real estate stuff. And I have these brands, Jamie Feaster, from Ease, now runs Country with me. But these are like, I guess like projects that I just like want to do the fun part of, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like able to do just that, which is kind of wild. I do some work too.
Yeah,
but
like the execution, especially in cannabis with the challenges, anything cannabis related.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, like you saw gaps in what the industry needed that didn't have, and you set to do things that have never been done before that are needed because you felt compelled to do them. So you need a good team around you or beside you to execute on things that are that complex that no one else has figured out how to do it.
Yeah, even people that are like way better, like, anyway, I don't want to get too into idea versus execution, but it's something that it's like challenging me. It's been challenged like for me for a long time. So I have like a million ideas. Like I can't stop. I want to just turn this off. I wish I could just have like one thing I wanted to do or whatever, but like I can't do it. I'm like, even I talked to people recently, some of my mentors, and I said like, what should I do? If I were to, like, give me your advice, like, Craig Fox, if you know Craig, or these like people. I've been like, dude, you have a much different perspective than me. Like, and I'm down just to play the role. I like team. I want to do cool projects with people. I'm not trying to be like a solo person doing anything. Skateboarding by yourself isn't fun. Do you know what I mean? I want you to go up with your friends, So I asked him, and some other people like on his level, like, what should I be doing? You know what I mean? And a lot of them were like, you should focus on something. And I'm like, ooh, I don't want to focus. It sounds so not fun. Because I did that for the record label for 10 years, and then I was burnt out, And I think like I don't want to feel like I'm like trapped in one thing. You know what I mean? So.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially with an area like cannabis too, with how your brain works, there's just so many areas of opportunity. There's so many areas of need. So it's tough. You to stay focused with all that noise and that white space, if you will.
When we did the deal with Gary Vaynerchuk, he said to me one thing. He said, Rama, soon you're going to be suffocated by opportunity. And I was like, you don't know what you're doing. No way. I'm going to crush it. I'm the best. Then I was crushed. I was like, damn it, God, this guy, he's never been wrong. He tells me, it's been 3 or 4 things I've been like, I don't agree with you, and then he was right on all of them. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's exactly right. That's the problem with a lot of the entrepreneurs is like they want to do so much stuff, and you know what I mean? Can you pivot? I'm just like different kind of because like I'm not public, right? I didn't take money from people. Like, I'm not like, it's like, it's still my like very like independent business that I'm running.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, you've definitely seen a lot in terms of celebrity backed, from back in your music business to celebrity backed cannabis to events and trade shows and in-person activations. I know you've obviously Hall of Flowers. To me, Hall of Flowers, I know it's a B2B trade show, but it just brings good people together in California cannabis more than any singular event.
Yep. Hell yeah. Appreciate that. Thank you. Can we use that quote? We can use that quote on the website.
You got it. Yeah.
Danny, you hear that?
I'll say it. It does.
Yeah. We agree. I think that's the culture side of this.
You see other groups out there like we need a Hall of Flowers like event
100%,
here in Missouri
100%.
or in
everyone's going to have a Hall of Flowers type of event in every state unless you can start trading over state lines. Maybe you could do something on the border and touch a couple states or whatever, But yeah, of course, it's like this is Danny and Aaron come from the fashion trade shows. And in fashion, there's a trade show called Magic.
Yeah.
And Magic Trade Show, when I did my fashion trade show, United, it was a kind of against the magic show. It's what they call a satellite show. So magic's happening in Vegas. There's 100,000 people going. I think at that point it was like a 70 or 90-year-old trade show. So these things have been on forever. So like they evolved to that point. And we did our little trade show kind of down the street from it. We had a couple hundred brands. You know, it was still a big success. So for us, it was huge. And you know, but it has 100 years, or say 70 years, in case I'm not sure exactly on when magic was started. But it's like, you know, almost a century of evolution. You know, Hall Flowers in the cannabis industry, it's like we're 5 or 10 years into it. You know what I mean? So it's going to evolve for a long time. You know, and eventually I think there'll be national shows. I mean, MJ BizCon, you know, we had that little thing inside of MJ BizCon. I don't think we're doing it this year. I think we're going to do our own little like fun little thing, but not a trade show, but just a little thing. But yeah. Anyway.
So what do you? Yeah. So let's just I want to get talking about cannabis and basically your perspective on so many different things. How much time do we have, peeps?
Probably about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, perfect. So California cannabis, is it dead? Can you operate in
no.
it?
What do you mean?
Okay, well, people would go say they're all going out of business.
No, I think the big companies that aren't relevant in California, I think it makes sense that they pulled out. You know, I think it's a culture thing. Again, it's like, you know, this is still like, if it's skateboarding, it's still like cool guy Venice Beach skateboarding, and you can't show up with like the Tony Hawk board, holding it like from the mall kind of thing with like a helmet on and all the pads, you know what I mean, kind of thing. Like you just can't. With like, and two of your friends are rollerbladers, like you just can't do it. You know what I mean, for California. So I think when there's less competition in all those other states, they crush it, and those people need to stay in business. Back to the whole publicly traded thing. Yeah. Most of those people are in that world, and you know. But no, the culture is here. I do believe 100% that people want to smoke California weed. You know, so I think I mentioned to you before, like my like analogy is probably like, you know, this is like where your flagship is. This is where your marketing comes from. You know, you kind of need to exist here if you're a California brand, and then sell that California weed to all the other states or countries and stuff. It's like it's a loss leader flagship on Venice, Abbot Kinney or something like that, maybe a little bit for some people.
Well, I do believe that consumers want California weed, sun-grown California weed, California brands, and you obviously see that with, you know, in other states, and I mean eventually you'll see internationally, right? That's the goal. Yep. So people, in terms of the U.S., some might argue, but New York and L.A., cultural centers of everything, right? And
the only two cities that matter in the world on anything: fashion, music, art, entertainment, the planet. You could say
LA,
Paris or London, but
so what about New York weed? Because I think about the entrepreneurial energy and the capital access to the New York markets.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of people in New York that have their dream of their cannabis brand.
For sure.
You know, are cannabis brands from New York all going to make a dent compared to California brands?
In New York?
In
the country?
In
the world?
Global
Yeah, of course.
Cannabis
of course.
branding.
Yeah, and as long as Madison Avenue is in New York, then New York will be relevant for everything. You know, just like hip hop or whatever. You know what I mean? Skateboarding, same way. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of big skateboarders there. So, yeah, cannabis for sure. It's a global city. The thing is, like, I had the biggest bands and I had the biggest shit going on in Massachusetts. And like no one cared outside of Massachusetts. I had the biggest
that's for anything, Massachusetts.
You know, that's what I'm saying. I had the biggest shit going on up in the Bay Area. No one cared outside the Bay Area. You know, if you have the biggest stuff going on in New York or in Los Angeles, you're big globally. That's just what happens. You know, fashion, music, art, entertainment, sports, whatever, right? You know, so that's what will happen with cannabis. Whoever can win New York is going to win the world for sure. You know, I've been to New York a lot, looking at stuff and trying to be a part of it. I lived in New York. I love it there. It snows, so that's why I live here. You know, but I did Boston to New York, still cold, and then I did New York to LA.
Yeah.
You know, but also when you walk down the streets of New York, all those shops, like, they have all this product here. Like they have all these brands.
I know they have literally California COA tested
a lot
products.
Of it. A lot of it.
I know.
From these brands.
I've seen it.
You know, so like that could be a big help to these brands. Like
100%.
You know what I mean? Give them a head start. You know, before anyone else can even get on the shelf. You know, so but you know, again, back to the band thing. Like we would trade off, right? So I do see it being something where eventually, hopefully soon enough, the LA and New York brands will actually start working together. Because the New York brands are going to be like, we're the king of the world, but then they want to be big in LA too, right? So I think you're seeing a little bit. Dougie's doing events out there, and other people like they're doing stuff back and forth, So, yeah.
Yeah, people are definitely trying to make those inroads in New York right now that aren't there. The New
capital-
York folks that will eventually come back here too.
Yeah, New York's the capital of the world.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be, they have all these shops, and like you said, everyone has a dream to have a cannabis brand. So it's going to be hard to fix that or whatever.
So for a brand, like let's say you're a founder, you have an authentic cannabis story, and your product has an authentic quality point or effect or whatever. How do you create a brand that like transcends and actually becomes recognized? Like there's brands that are culturally relevant, right? Like you mentioned G Pen and Cookies and Alien Labs. There's culturally relevant brands. And I leave it off some, of course, but there's also ones that like just don't ever cross that chasm. Like, what does it take to build a brand that will survive the next 10 years in cannabis and be accessible in a variety of states across the country if you're starting it today? Is it possible?
100%. I think the biggest brands haven't been started yet. Honestly,
love that. Because we're still in the second inning.
Not even.
We're not the first anymore. Come on, second.
If you ask Gary, he would say like we probably haven't put our socks on yet still. He'll be like, we haven't even showered and got to the thing yet, guys. It's like 30 more years before it becomes milk or whatever, So I think the biggest brands haven't been started. I think they're going to be started by people that are in the trenches, partnering with people that have money, but they have respect on both sides. And I think we haven't seen that yet, because money people are just like, my cousin grows tomatoes, how hard can it be? And the money guys are like, I have barrels buried in the fucking desert or whatever. I don't care about your money or whatever thing, And so I think there's going to be that's the chasm to cross. And then I think there's, if you want to be a cool brand, I think there's two routes. If you're back to your thing, if you have experience, if you're a geneticist and like you're a celebrity chef, we'll call it, our mentor Shep Gordon, Supermensch, called the geneticist celebrity chefs. And this is 10 years ago, and I was like, fucking yes, that's the perfect way to look at them.
Sure.
So if you're like a chef-driven brand, like these brands here, whatever, Stravinsky, Wonder Bread, whatever, Jungle Boys, like if you're actually growing the product, I think then that's your story, and you stick with it. You're a celebrity chef. You make this best food, and no one can tell you otherwise. Or I think you need to have like the right tight brand around it. If you can do both in the story, that's even better. But I think that you just got to be authentic to the space. Then there's going to be all the big money widget companies, all those big box people, and how do you compete with that? You know what I mean? I don't know if you compete with that.
Yeah,
so you probably get acquired by those companies if you can prove you have a good book of business.
You're acquired by the future Diageo of cannabis.
Yeah.
And ultimately,
it's funny, when we started Green Street, Josh, my partner, and I sat down and said we could do one of two things. So we can be, at this point, it was Southern only, but Southern Glazer, like just distribution, Nabis or whatever, pennies, or Diageo. We can be a house of brands, or we can actually just, chase those pennies. One of the two things, So we took not the distribution side of it.
Yeah. So that you've seen a lot of celebrity backed things in cannabis and other industries, and obviously celebrities have been marketing things for 100 years.
100 years, yeah.
So some celebrity brands don't work in cannabis, and
of course.
Why?
Well, the same way a lot of brands don't work in cannabis in general. It has nothing to do with a celebrity. The businesses are just bad, I think that if you want, like, to answer your question, like, what's wrong with the celebrity deals, it's just that. People think, I told you earlier, like, that LeBron James is going to take his shoe off and sit in the half court and buy Nike. It's like not the case. When you sign your celebrity, you need to build a whole team around it, right? What happens when Nike signs LeBron? They also sponsor the team he's on. Everyone gets free product. They buy the commercial. When it cuts to commercial, it's him dunking. You know what I mean? They have, the logos on all the jerseys. It's much deeper than just the celebrity partner. You truly build a brand around it.
There are limitations to cannabis to pull off that whole ecosystem.
And the thing is with cannabis, you're probably in like state by state basis. You know what I mean? But I think the real answer is that the brands don't know how to like use the celebrity really well. You know what I mean? And celebrities done stuff for 100 years.
Dude, I think the consumers are also smarter in cannabis than people give credit to.
Celebrity chef, what do they know about weed? They don't want to smoke the weed that these guys don't grow weed. They want to smoke the weed they're smoking. They want to drive the cars they're driving. They want to wear the clothes they're wearing. It's part of the lifestyle. You know what I mean? It's more that. I mean, look at like, there's some brands over there that we're friends with that have major celebrity partnerships in them, but they don't like put that person's face on it really. You know what I mean? It's like they use that celebrity here and there in a smart way. You know what I mean? But of course, like what does Geraldo Rivera know about weed or whatever? You know what I mean? Remember that was going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Montel's in the game now.
Montel, that's who I was thinking
about.
Oh,
is it Montel? Yeah.
See,
I figured Geraldo.
Montel Williams. Yeah, that's the thing. I saw that ad and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
you know,
but I also think that what the playbook is for failure has been is like taking a celebrity name and some beautiful packaging and putting in something that's the same as the thing on the shelf but $15 more.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the celebrity tax we call it. It's going to trick them once and never go back again.
Yeah,
I think that you just got to keep it the real price. You know, again, like look at Chavo. I think's doing a good job. You know, I know he's really passionate about it. You know, Seth Rogen seems to be selling a lot of accessories. You know, I don't know how well that's doing, but you know. Yeah. Anyway, I think that there's.
Well, your next frontier. Well, there's many frontiers, but one of the things after the success in like the B2B trade show world is like the B2C, and I know like you're pulling off a giant consumer-facing, consumption-friendly, music-inspired cannabis consumer event at scale is daunting. To say the least. We talk about the 420 experience and getting city approval and then at the goal line getting it removed after 6 months of saying it was okay. And it's like that's a cannabis story.
Yeah, even that I like don't even want to talk about it because I feel like I don't want to talk shit about it and then they block me later or something,
I took it on job. They're doing their job.
Literally my response was like, thank you so much. Okay, thank you. I'm like, but again, here's 40 emails.
Best wishes, warmest possible.
Like literally, like it's like they anyway. And the last one we did on this 420. We did it at 2-Bit Circus, which is incredible if you haven't been there. And we worked with Hulu on it because Hulu's filming a TV show for our friends dispensary MMD, and they're doing like a reality TV show based at the dispensary level kind of thing. You know what I mean? And they filmed the season finale of the season.
That's great content, by the way.
At the event, it's amazing.
Content,
So we really did it as like I did it as a private event, but it was also like filmed and it was a private lot, so I didn't have to need really city approval for any of that kind of stuff. We just had to have like the filming permits and stuff. But that was interesting. 420, it's just like there needs to be, if we want this to go mainstream, like this is my goal, right? This is what I'm here to do. I'm here to protect the authenticity of cannabis. That's my mission, right? That's everything I do that leads to that. Every client I work with, do they do that? Yes or no? I brought you the bong today. 30 years in, we protect that. You know what I mean? Like the brands I like, I'm helping them, for this. So if that's the goal and mainstream's coming into the space, we saw Jack in the Box, all these companies. I sent a list out. It was like, there was like 40 Fortune 500 companies that celebrated 420 this year. Huge, giant companies. Wendy's and all these companies, did it, like huge companies. It's like they're coming in, you know what I mean? So I want to bridge that gap and help it be like something cool that we're proud of. I want to be able to have these the consumers events are coming in and they're done, I think, 2 ways. They're either done just like the media companies have been done. It's either like super endemic, like crazy, almost like it's chaotic and you can't even show a professional person this. It's definitely not going to attract the mainstream consumer. Or they're like these like mainstream things that have no culture or part of it, So if we can do both of that, that's really the goal. And, I just think that there should be dozens of these across California if we want this to go mainstream. It's like, imagine if you said like, how big would baseball be or football if they never played live? You know what I mean? Or there was one baseball match a year only. It's like, it's not going to be a thing,
Right.
So we got to just, I don't know, that's my approach to it.
So in your working on, you want to talk about the...
Yeah, I mean, we're working on 420. I have a insane partner in it with Superfly. They did Bonnaroo and Outside Lands. So
they know a thing about producing culturally relevant experiences.
Yeah, well, that's why we went there. It's like, it was like years and years and years.
I mean, it's great that they share the vision. This is like what they want to do next.
Yeah, they love weed. They're like personally invested in weed stuff and whatever. And it's been years in. But look at Bonnaroo. Bonnaroo is a perfect example of that. It was like a jam band event that turned into probably the biggest, most important festival in the world. So
in the fucking South.
in the South, in a very weird place, you know,
Yeah.
and they exited to Live Nation. Before that happened, I was talking to them for years about like trying, because again, I talked about I want to do the cool stuff. So I don't want to I don't even want to go to the event really. I don't, and never mind produce it. I don't, you know what I mean? Like I'm so stressed at these things always, you know, but they just need to exist, you know?
And you're connecting the right people and pointing the right direction to do it.
Yeah, I'm just curating it, making it relevant and cool. Like you said, it's a cult. It has to be like the 420 example is like it's already happening. It's already a giant holiday, you know. And I'm like, if you look at articles, like some articles are like, "Stop 420. It's embarrassing. It sucks." I've never been entirely proud of it because it just comes off amateur. You know, it comes off like a bunch of like Irish people, like whatever, in the streets, like making a mess. You know? Yeah, like just crazy thing for like St. Patrick's Day. So. Yeah, the idea was like, let's just build something that we're proud of, that is professional, but also is endemic. Everything I do is like, I want it to be endemic, but I want the mainstream to be also into it and not turned off by it. You know, I want to be able to take these endemic brands and these core culture brands and expose them to the mainstream so they can become the big brands. You know,
and it's bridging those gaps that whether it's like companies in cannabis with your suits. And your OGs respecting each other. The only way it works.
That's
Same
exactly
thing
what it is.
for doing making consumer events mainstream with consumption-friendly events.
Yeah.
Both of those worlds have to work together.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and
right.
There's a vision there. So, last question.
Sure.
You know, if you've been working in cannabis for the last, let's just say, 5 to 10 years, and you find yourself in, let's say, like California, and you're still in it. Is it all going to be okay? Is it all going to be okay, Rama?
I would say you should definitely look out of California to make money. I would definitely say that. You know, like I've ignored any project, client, anything outside of California for 10 years. Huge Canadian stuff, I say no. Huge, weird, central, I said no to everything unless it's California, because again, I say California and New York are the capitals of the world. So I turned down, I didn't care unless it was in California. I wouldn't even work on it. And for the first time ever, I wrote on the whiteboard, like, look for money outside of Cali. For the first, and it's like in the corner, teeny little, I don't even believe it yet. It's not even in the main part, but it's just like a teeny little note. So I would say, like, yeah, it's two things. If you need to make money and like you have children like you do and you got to like do all this stuff, I think you have to look outside California. But if you're here to like, you know, you can like scrape by or, you know, or kind of like live what I do, like very simply, you know, then, and you want to build something, I think it's the best time in the world to build this. Everyone right now is hitting the brakes in California. Think of this. Everybody stops spending.
There's opportunity in that.
Everyone stops spending. If you can start going ahead, you're going to fucking slingshot past all these people, you know? And then like you're in hiring, right? You like place people, like, you know how hard it is to find good people, right? So I think this huge wave, and maybe you guys were part of this, I don't know, no offense if you were, but this huge wave of corporate people getting placed and having no clue what's going on and needing like big support teams and having budgets, these crazy things called budgets that they were, you know what I mean? And then having assistants and all this stuff, like none of them worked really, right? You know, like you're seeing the CEO is back again, like at the booth, and they were like retired. And one of the dudes I met was like, you know, like these guys were like, didn't think to ever come back to work again, you know? So I think if you can, if you're down to put the work in, I think it's here. Otherwise,
and it's, you know, honestly, Rama, it's the best time to hire or to put a team together
100%.
that understands a playbook for cannabis now.
If you've been in 5 years, that's like dog years. So you're like 35 years in. You're like a fucking genius.
And
in
this industry attracts people
Yeah.
that are into it because they're their authentic self at work and they're inspired every day they wake up to do their job. And so there's crazy people that want to stay in this industry, and there's more experienced folks than ever before to build something with. So the sun will rise. There is hope, and we're still in the first or second innings. Stay strong, Rama.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, of course. Hell yeah. Very, very cool.